Hello and welcome to the second lecture of the chapter Organisms and Population. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about the basics of ecology, and also we were discussing about the physiological ecology and the major abiotic factors that is affecting the life of every organisms. In today's lecture, this is part 2 of ecology and specifically of the chapter Organisms and Population. In today's lecture, we'll be discussing two topics. Topic number 1 is going to be responses to abiotic factors, and topic number 2 will be adaptations. And these two are very important topic both for the boards as well as for the NEET examination. So let's start with the first part, that is the responses to abiotic factors. So first we are going to discuss what are the different ways in which organisms respond to the various abiotic factors which are present in the surroundings. And basically we will be discussing four main responses. Number 1 is known as regulation, number 2 is conformation, number 3 is migration, and number 4 is suspension. So let us start with the very first one. Before moving on to the responses, we have to understand a term which is known as homeostasis. So let us see what is this term homeostasis and what is the significance of homeostasis. What happened was that the external environment that was not stable for a very long duration. Very long duration starting from the formation of Earth. So ever since the Earth was formed, the climate have been changing continuously. So the organisms which are present at different lifespan or different span, they had to adapt to whatever external environment was present at their period of time, right? So ultimately what was happened is that the conditions, or we can say the body features of these organisms eventually got adapted to these external conditions, and it is due to which they have ultimately became fittest of the environment. They became fit organisms according to the concept of natural selections. So now whatever features that we are able to see in these organisms, they are a result of a large number of adaptations, and these adaptations have resulted in enabling the organism to maintain a constant internal environment. Internal environment can be in optimal temperature, or it can be in terms of osmotic concentration of the body fluids. So this ability of an organism to constantly maintain the internal environment is called as homeostasis. And homeostasis is to regulate the external condition and to cope up with all the unfavorable external conditions. So we can get a question related to what is the meaning of homeostasis and what is the need for homeostasis. So if a question is asked, the answer should be the process in which an organism tries to maintain constancy of its internal environment despite varying external environmental conditions is called as homeostasis, and this homeostasis is to maintain an optimal temperature, that is known as thermoregulation, and another one is to maintain the osmotic concentration of the body fluids, which is known as osmoregulation. So these are the two main reasons why homeostasis plays a very crucial role. Let us start with the various responses. The first response that we will be discussing is regulation. So let us see what you mean by regulation, and then we will discuss what does these cartoons relate to this particular topic. So before I move to the theory, it's a 3-point theory, but before we move to this, let us understand the complete scenario with the help of this particular flowchart or this particular diagram. So here we can see I have plotted a number line over here, and here I have marked three temperatures. So this is a temperature scale. We have 37 degrees Celsius, less than 37 degrees Celsius, and greater than 37 degrees Celsius. So what happens is that the optimum condition for the various enzymes in our body to activate is 37 degrees Celsius. So that is known as the optimum temperature. Let me denote it by T naught. So T naught represents the optimum temperature. So majority of the body functions, the metabolic activities will be happening with maximum efficiency at this particular temperature, that is 37 degrees Celsius. But what happens is that if the temperature is increased beyond 37 degrees Celsius, then what happens is we have an ability of sweating. When the external environment is having a temperature greater than 37 degrees Celsius, we start sweating. And this sweating is to reduce the temperature so that the temperature comes back to 37 degrees Celsius. So if the external body temperature is greater than 37 degrees Celsius, we start sweating, and as a result of sweating, we will be our body temperature is reduced, and the corresponding respective body temperature changes to 37 degrees Celsius. On the other hand, if the temperature drops below 37 degrees Celsius, that is also not a favorable condition for us. So in that particular scenario, what is happening is that we start shivering. Now shivering is a form of exercise, and this exercise enables our body to retain the temperature of 37 degrees Celsius back. So whatever be the temperature, we are able to survive in any of those temperature because we have two important process, sweating and shivering, which is helping in regulating the body temperature so that it is maintained at a constant level, that is 37 degrees Celsius, which is optimum for the enzymes to act upon. Now if I bring the similar concept in the case of mammals, we can see that majority of the birds and mammals, since we are homeothermic organisms, we are able to regulate our temperature. Similarly, we are able to regulate the osmotic concentration as well. So the evolutionary biologists, they suggest that the evolutionary success of mammals is due to this ability to maintain a constant body temperature. That means it is due to this unique ability of regulation of the temperature and the osmotic body concentration. That is the reason why we mammals are able to inhabit all the major biomes on Earth. In the previous lecture, we have discussed that there are extremities also, like the Arctic ice caps and the Antarctic ice caps, but here also we can see different forms of mammals because we have regulated our temperature. So we have different mechanisms to regulate our temperature, and it is because of this regulatory mechanism that mammals are able to spread to a large number of niches. So this is the points related to regulation. So I hope the concept of regulation is clear for you. So if the temperature is greater than 37 degrees Celsius, we will start sweating so as to reduce our temperature, and if it is less, then we will start shivering so that we regulate our temperature to the optimum conditions. Moving on with the second characteristic, which is known as conform. The second response is known as conformation. So let us understand what is conformation. Now conformation is like, if the external conditions are changing, then the internal conditions also changes accordingly. That means if it is cold outside, then our body temperature drops down. If it is hot outside, then our body temperature increases. This is happening in the case of poikilothermous organisms, that is the cold-blooded organisms which cannot maintain a constant internal body temperature. Similarly, in the case of osmotic concentration also, we have certain aquatic animals where the osmotic concentration of the body fluid, they changes with the ambient water concentration. So these organisms which cannot regulate their body temperature, rather their temperature and osmotic concentration changes with respect to their environment in which they are living, then they are called as conformers. And nearly 99% of the animals and nearly all the plants are showing this particular response, that is conformation. So now a question can arise in our mind. This conformation is not good because we have seen in the previous section that regulation is the best method, because regulation is responsible for the success of the mammals. So for attaining success of a particular species, obviously regulation is required. But why come these conformers are not undergoing evolution and converting into regulators? So let us understand the reasons why this is not happening. Why are the conformers not getting converted to regulators? So let me take two examples. One case is that of smaller organisms, and another is the case of larger organisms. Larger organisms means those organisms which is having a greater volume and comparatively their surface area is lesser. And smaller organisms means which is having smaller volume and having a comparatively larger surface area. So if volume is lesser, surface area will be larger, and vice versa. So that is an important point to keep in mind. So if we take the first case, that is of the smaller organisms, then what happens is that in these organisms we have to keep this in mind, that thermoregulation becomes an energetically expensive process. Thermoregulation is obviously an energetically expensive process. Sweating also releases energy, and if we talk about shivering, that will require much more amount of energy, right? But this much amount of energy is not feasible in the case of smaller organisms such as shrews, which is a rat-like organism, and hummingbird, which is a very small bird. What is the reason? Is because heat loss or heat gain is a function of surface area. So if surface area is greater, then what happens is that that particular system can release a lot of heat easily, right? But if the surface area is smaller as compared to the volume, then this is not happening. So in our case, what happens, our volume is greater as compared to the surface area, and as a result of which we can expend more energy for thermoregulation, because that is needed for the success of mammals. But in the case of smaller organisms such as shrews and hummingbees, what happens is that for these organisms thermoregulation is extremely energy consuming process, so they does not want to expend so much energy for the process of thermoregulation. And these organisms having a large surface area relative to their volume, as a result of which what happens, if it is having larger surface area, lots of heat will be evolved out. Every system, if it is having a larger surface area, then you might have studied in thermodynamics of chemistry that it will try to evolve a lot of heat. It will release a lot of heat to the surroundings, right? So what happens is that during winters, the temperature of the surrounding medium is lesser as compared to the body temperature. So obviously heat will be flowing from a hotter system to a colder system. So what happens, from the body the heat will be moving to the surroundings. So there is an extensive loss of heat is happening from the organism's body to the outside, because it is cold outside. So this will obviously require a large amount of energy, because energy is lost through the process of metabolism. So they are losing a lot of energy because already the condition is extremely cold outside, and these organisms have to evolve a lot of heat because they are acting as a thermodynamic systems. So by both these means they are losing a lot of heat, so they cannot spend more than this. They cannot spend a large amount of energy for thermoregulation in the case of smaller organisms. That is why they have not evolved to become regulators. Now let us take the second case, that is the organisms which is having a volume which is greater as compared to the surface area. In these organisms what happens is that they will try to conform, but after a particular limit they will try to regulate. So for a particular duration of time they will conform, and after that they will try to regulate. That is why they are known as partial regulators. So this is a graph which is plotted between the internal level and the external level. Internal level means inside the body, and external level means that is the surrounding. So if we take the first case, that is the case of regulators, we can see that whatever happens in the external level is changing continuously, but the internal level, as you can see, is remaining relatively constant. That is the graph for regulators. Whereas if we take the case of conformers, what is the external level? Correspondingly, there is a change in the internal level, that is seen in the case of conformers. And in the case of partial regulators, to a particular limit, we can see for a particular threshold value, it will be increasing its body, or it will be changing its body conditions. That is, it is showing conformation to a particular limit, and after that they will be acting as a regulator. That is why they are known as partial regulators. So this is the two major response to abiotic factors. But the story does not end here. We have two other methods of responding to the abiotic factors. One is migration and another is suspension, which is not shown by all organisms, or a complete group of organisms which will not show this particular mechanisms, but only certain members of different species will show these two responses. That is why we are studying them towards the end. So let us start with the third one, that is migration. Now what is migration? Migration is a beautiful phenomena. Why is it a beautiful phenomena? Suppose I am living in Delhi and it is very hot in Delhi. During summers what happens is that the temperature at Delhi is very high, nearly 45 to 47 degrees Celsius. So what I feel is that it's not safe to live over here. I'm feeling extremely hot here. So what happens is that I'm moving to a colder place, say Shimla. So that means a person is moving from Delhi to Shimla because the temperature is extremely high at Delhi. That means the conditions for the survival of that particular organism is totally unfavorable over here and favorable over here, right? So the conditions of survival is unfavorable in Delhi and it is favorable in Shimla, and I am going to stay in Shimla till the time the conditions in Delhi become favorable. So once the condition in my natural habitat, that is Delhi, become favorable, then I will be moving back to Delhi. The same story is happening in the case of many organisms. If the environment in which that particular organism is living, if that is an unfavorable one, then they will try to migrate or move away from that particular habitat for a certain duration of time, and they will be moving to a region which is having lesser environmental stresses. And when all these stresses are over, they will come back to their natural habitat. This is known as migration. So if we take the case of some birds, we have a lot of birds which is coming from Siberia and extremely cold northern regions which are coming to India, specifically in the national park that is named as the Koilado National Park in Bharatpur in Rajasthan. So this particular national park in Rajasthan, that is the Koilado National Park, that is a host for thousands of migratory birds which are coming from Siberia and the colder north regions. They are coming to India because India is a tropical country and the conditions are favorable for their mating purposes. That is why they are coming here, and once the conditions in Siberia becomes favorable, then they will be moving, and all these are controlled by the photoperiodic cues. That is, light is responsible, light and temperature is responsible for regulating these migratory activities which we have discussed in the previous lecture. So this was all about the third method of responding to the environmental cues. And now let us start with the fourth one, which is suspension. Now what is suspension? Suspension is like, if I get low mark in examination, then I will not study. This is a kind of attitude in the case of suspension. So here what am I going to do is I'm going to stop all my activities because the condition is not favorable, right? It's not safe to go outside now. So I am going to stay in home forever. This is a kind of attitude which is shown by organisms in this particular method. So here what is happening is that the organism is going to stop all sorts of metabolic activity for a duration of time till the condition becomes favorable. So let us see what are the different ways in which organisms are suspending. First, if we take the case of bacteria, fungi and lower plants, they are forming spores. And the peculiarity of these spores is that they are thick-walled. They are thick-walled spores, and they help to survive in the unfavorable conditions. And when the conditions become favorable, then they will be germinating back. Examples for these spores include the endospores, and also we have the statospores. Endospores and statospores, these are two examples of unfavorable spores. These will not germinate in the unfavorable conditions, whereas when the temperature and other necessary factors becomes favorable, then they will germinate. So this is what is happening in the case of suspension in the lower organisms such as bacteria, fungi and lower plants. Whereas if I take the case of higher plants, what happens is that the seeds, they will get into a particular stage of inactive nature that is known as dormancy. So dormancy is a state of suspended development. So here what is happening is that the seed stops all sorts of development and it is going to remain arrested. Once the condition becomes favorable, they are ready to germinate, and there are certain factors which are responsible for causing dormancy and also for removing dormancy, and this was asked in NEET 2020. So investigate from the NCERT textbook of chapter number 15, class 11th, what are the factors that is responsible for dormancy and what are the factors that is helping the seeds to overcome dormancy, and comment in the comment section below. So that's an assignment for you so that you can just correlate with your class 11 topics as well as class 12 topics. Now let us see in the case of animals, what are the different ways in which animals are showing suspension. If we take the case of organisms such as bear, they will be entering into a long duration of sleep. So these bears are like Kumbhakarna, so they are going for a very long duration of sleep during winters. So it is known as winter sleep, that is known as hibernation. Whereas in the case of snails and certain fishes, they will start sleeping when it is extremely hot outside, that is during the summers, and this is known as summer sleep, which is known as aestivation. That can go on for months, and in the case of polar bears, they can hibernate for years as well. Another one is that shown by a very small organism, that is the planktonic species, zooplankton species. Now, what are zooplanktons? Zooplanktons are minute organisms which are present in water that feeds on certain plants, which is known as phytoplanktons. So these zooplanktons, what happens is that they will enter into a stage of inactive development, and this stage of inactive development is called as diapause. So diapause is nothing but a stage of suspended development, and they will remain suspended in this particular unfavorable weather conditions. So till the conditions become favorable, they are going to remain suspended, and when the conditions become favorable, they will come back and they will start the process of development again. So this is all about the various responses to abiotic factors. Now let us move on to the next topic, that is the last topic of the major topic, that is organisms, that is adaptation. So let's start with adaptations. So starting with adaptations, adaptation is nothing but it's an attribute. It's an attribute, or we can say it's a characteristic of an organism that enables the organism to survive and reproduce in its habitat. So this, it's an attribute. It can be physiological, it can be behavioral, or it can be morphological, and these characteristics will help in the better survival and reproduction of that particular organism. Many adaptations have evolved over longer evolutionary time, and they are genetically fixed. Initially, these adaptations are coming as minute mutations, and ultimately what is happening is that initially they are present in the intron sequences. You will study about introns and exons in the chapter of molecular basis of inheritance. So if you know it already, you have to keep this point in mind, that the initial stages of adaptation, the characteristics are incorporated. The genes for these certain changes, the new changes that is introduced in the organism, that is present in the introns. But later on, what happens with the passage of time, these will get incorporated into the exons, and ultimately they will get into the genome. So ultimately these characteristics becomes a part of the genomic sequences, and ultimately it will result in a characteristic of an organism. So it will become a inevitable part of that particular organisms. Like initially what was happening is that human beings had tail long ago, but later what happened, tail was not necessary, so we got adapted to that, right? We got adapted to that, and finally now we do not have a tail. Similarly, in the case of snake, initially snakes have leg, but ultimately what has happened? Now they do not have legs, they do not have limbs, right? So these are some of the examples for adaptations, but adaptations that have become genetically fixed over the duration of time. Whereas certain organisms are having adaptations for a particular duration only, and you can take camouflage as an example. The color is not changing permanently, rather it is changing only for a certain duration of time. Another example which we can take is mimicry. So all these are different examples for temporary adaptations, whereas permanent adaptation is that which I have told in the case of tail and limbs in the case of snake. Let us see the physiological adaptation. So here you can see a very cute mouse, right? It's not a mouse, it's a kangaroo rat. It's a kangaroo rat, and it is seen in the North American deserts, and though it looks so cute and small, it is having some very unique characteristic. So let us study what are these characteristics which are so unique to them. These organisms live in a condition where water is limited. Water scarcity is extreme in North American deserts. So these organisms, that is kangaroo rats, they got adapted to this particular water scarcity. Now, how did they become adapted to water scarcity? They became adapted by the internal fat oxidation. So whenever fat is oxidized, when the fat is undergoing beta oxidation, it will be releasing a little bit of water as a byproduct. And this water is known as metabolic water. So this metabolic water is used up for carrying out the various metabolic activities. Similarly, we have seen that in the case of their urine is extremely concentrated, and as a result of which the water loss can be reduced. So these are the two different ways in which water loss can be reduced in the case of kangaroo rat. The first one is by internal fat oxidation, and number two is by concentrating its urine. So we can expect that this organism later on changes to uricotilic organism because of its limited water availability. Another example of physiological adaptation is seen in the plant which is known as Opuntia. Opuntia is also known as cactus. So what is so peculiar about Opuntia? Opuntia also lives in desert conditions and their water scarcity is at its extreme. So in these organisms what happens is that they are having a thick cuticle, and cuticle will be having corty substances, right? Corty substances are present, and because of this waxy substances which are present on the cuticle, they are having lesser transpiratory losses. Similarly, their stomatas are sunken. Sunken stomata means stomata is hidden, and since the stomata is hidden, lot of water cannot be lost from this stomata through the process of transpiration. So again, water loss can be regulated. Similarly, they are having a special metabolic pathway which is known as CAM pathway, which is crustacean acid metabolism pathway, and it is because of this particular pathway, that is CAM pathway, that they are having a scotopic stomata. Now what is the meaning of scotopic stomata? So I'll write the spelling over here. Scotopic stomata. Scotopic stomata means during day the stomata will be closed, and during night the stomata will be open. So this is the case of scotopic stomata. Usually what happens is that in majority of the plants it is having photopic stomata, where the stomata is open during the daytime and closed during the nighttime. But if it is open during the daytime, then what happens is that lot of water will be drained by the process of transpiration. So to prevent that, these are having scotopic stomata, so that the amount of water that is lost in the form of transpiration is reduced. Another one is that they do not have leaves, and instead of leaves they are having spines. So the photosynthetic activity, that is not done by spines, rather it is done by the flattened stem, and that flattened stem is known as phylloclade. It is known as phylloclade. So phylloclade is a stem modification that is seen in the case of Opuntia, and it is carrying out photosynthesis. So you can see P over here, photosynthesis, and you can see a hill similar to chlorophyll, right? You have a fill in the end, so remember that it has chlorophyll. These stem of Opuntia, they are having chlorophyll, and another important point that we have to note is they are flattened stem. Now this phylloclade can be cylindrical as well, which can be seen in the case of a plant which is known as euphorbia. In the case of euphorbia, what happens is that this phylloclade is cylindrical, whereas in the case of Opuntia, this phylloclade is flattened. Let us now see a very important rule which is known as Allen's rule. So this is again a physiological adaptation which is shown by, or we can say this is a morphological adaptation. Rather than physiological, we can say this is a morphological adaptation which is seen in the case of organisms which are living in the colder climates. Colder climates means the Arctic and the Antarctic region. Whichever organisms are present, like the polar bears and the seals, they are having shorter ears and shorter limbs. Their limbs and ears are very tiny. What is the reason for this? Maximum amount of heat will be lost from the external appendages like the pinna and also from the limbs. So if the size of these limbs and pinna is reduced, then what happens is that heat loss can be reduced. This is known as Allen's rule. So Allen's rule states that the organisms which are belonging to the colder climates, they are having shorter limbs and shorter pinna or shorter ears, so as to minimize heat loss. Now another important characteristic of the organisms which are present in the colder climates is that they are having a very thick layer of fat which is present beneath their skin, and this thick layer of fat is known as the blubber. So this blubber acts as an insulator. Blubber is acting as an insulator, and it will reduces the loss of body heat. So this will keep the organism warm. So whenever we see an organism like seal in any of the movies, you have to remember that the blubber or the fat which is present beneath the skin is to protect it from the harsh climatic conditions which are present over there. Now let us see the next case, that is altitude sickness. So altitude sickness is seen when we move to higher altitudes. Higher altitudes means when I am moving from a plain region to a hill region. Suppose I am moving from Delhi to Rohtang Pass in Himachal Pradesh, then what happens is that I'm going to a high altitude. So at high altitude, what happens is that the amount of RBCs which are produced is increased. Why are the number of RBCs increased when we move to the higher altitude? Is because the pressure is extremely high at the higher altitudes, and as a result of which what happens is that the oxygen availability is less. The partial pressure of the oxygen is lesser, so the affinity of oxygen is also lesser. So the hemoglobin also has a decreased affinity of hemoglobin, and as a result of which enormous number of RBCs will be produced in our body so as to cope up with this oxygen requirements of the cells. So what happens is that the breathing rate will be increased, and ultimately it can also result in abnormalities such as nausea, fatigue, and heart palpitations. So there can be some heart variation, heart sound variation, and also heartbeat variation, that is known as heart palpitations. Also there can be increased breathing. What are the reasons for this? Number one is that the affinity towards oxygen is reduced. Number two is that it is having lesser affinity. The RBCs are having lesser affinity towards the hemoglobin, towards the oxygen. And the third one is that there is increased number of RBCs which are produced, and the availability of oxygen is very less. But gradually what happens is that if we are staying in that particular area for a longer duration, we get adapted to that eventually, and once we come back again, we will be having the normal hemoglobin, not the abnormal count. Whereas if you take a tribal person who is living in the top regions, so if you count their RBC will be having a greater count as compared to the one tribe which is present in the planar regions. So now let us see the structural adaptation, and the most common example that we are discussing in structural adaptation is that of archaebacteria. Now archaebacteria, we have studied in class 11th also that these archaebacteria are able to thrive in the extremities like the hot springs or the saline conditions, or even in the gut of the ruminant animals where there is excess of methane which is present. How are they able to cope up with these conditions? They are able to cope up with all these conditions because of certain modifications in the cell wall as well as in the cell membrane. If you look at the cell wall of these organisms, they are having lesser amount of murine. Murine is absent, and instead of that, larger number of polysaccharides are present in archaebacteria. Similarly, in their cell membrane, what happens is that they do not have cholesterol. Instead of cholesterol, there is hopenoids which is present, which is responsible for the structural stability of the plasma membrane. And also, so I'll write the spelling of hopenoid here if you don't know. Hopenoids are the structures which are having units similar to the cholesterol molecule, and they are responsible for the stability in these bacteria. And another important point is that they are having increased number of branched lipids. So whenever branching of the lipids is more, what happens is that the fluidity is reduced, as a result of which the tolerance to the extremities will be increased. So that is the special structural adaptations which we can see in the case of archaebacteria, and it is due to these structural adaptations that it is able to thrive in the extremities of temperature, acidic conditions, etc. Another type of adaptation is the biochemical adaptation, which is seen in the case of fishes living in the Antarctic waters. Now, the organisms which are living in Antarctica, the aquatic organisms which are living in Antarctica, they have to live in a condition where the temperature is very, very less, right? So, don't their body freeze? But the answer is no. Their bodies does not freeze. If you have seen in the cartoons and all, we can see fishes will flow, right? If you see Tom and Jerry and all, we can see fishes will be there in the water below. But if Tom or Jerry falls into the water, ice cold water, they will be coming out like a lollipop or a ice lolly, right? So the thing is that in the case of these fishes, they are having antifreeze solutes. So their body fluid will be having antifreeze solutes, and it is due to the presence of these antifreeze solutes that they are able to live in these extremely cold conditions. So now let us start with the last type of adaptation, which is known as behavioral adaptations. Starting with the behavioral adaptations, the most common example is what you can see in the picture. This is known as a desert lizard. Now, in the case of desert lizard, though it is a higher organism belonging to the phylum of Chordata, but still it is not able to cope up with the temperature conditions because it is again a poikilothermous organisms. Right. So what happens is that when the temperature is extremely high, what happens is that they will bury into the soil. They will bury into the soil and hide and escape from the above grounded heat. Whereas they will bask in the sun. They will come and lie in the sun when the temperature drops below their comfort zone. So at low temperature, they will come to the sun and they will be resting over there, basking in the sun. Whereas in the case of summers, what happens is that to avoid this extreme heat, they will be burying and they will be staying inside the burrows. So this was all about adaptation. We have discussed about physiological adaptation, morphological adaptations, biochemical adaptations, structural adaptations, and behavioral adaptations. So I hope these two topics are clear for you: responses to abiotic factors as well as the behavioral adaptations. So if you have understood the theory, please do like below so that I can understand that you people have understood what is mentioned in this particular lecture. Now let us discuss some of the questions, and just like the previous lecture, I would request you all to keep an OMR or just keep a notebook for writing the answers at your end and simultaneously check with the answers so that you can ensure that you understood the topics and which are the weaker areas where you need to focus more on. So let us start with question number 1. We'll be discussing 10 MCQs, and in the end we will be discussing some important questions for the board examination students also. So let us start with question number 1. So question number 1 states, shorter body extremities in animals living in colder climate is explained by. So this is a very easy question. I have told the case of the polar bears, which is having shorter limbs as well as shorter pinna to reduce the heat loss, and that is explained by the Allen's rule. So for this particular question, the answer is option number 1. Moving on to the next question. Before that, some other rules are also mentioned in this question, like the Berkman's rules, the Wrench's rule, and the Jordan's rule. So let us just quickly go through this. What is Berkman's rule? Berkman's rule states that warm-blooded organisms have larger body size as compared to hotter areas. So if we take colder climatic conditions and hotter climatic conditions, then the ones which are living in the colder climatic conditions, they are having greater body size. For this, let us take two examples, polar bear and the normal bear. The polar bear will be having a greater size. This is explained by the Bergman's rule. Second one is the Wrench's rule. Wrench's rule states that in colder climate, birds possess narrow and acuminate wings as compared to the broader wings as seen in the warmer areas. Organisms, or the birds specifically, which are living in the colder areas, they are having wider wings. They are having narrow wings, whereas those which are present in the warmer areas, they are having a wider wings. So keep this point in mind, warmer, wider. So the birds which are present in the warmer areas is having wider, and the ones which are present in the colder areas, they are having short wings, narrow wings. The last one is known as Jordan's rule. So what is Jordan's rule? Jordan's rule states that if the temperature is lowered, then some of the fishes possess larger size with larger number of vertebrae. So this is about Jordan's rule. Jordan's rule is related to fishes, which states that the fishes which are living in colder climatic conditions, they are having larger size. So these are the four important rules: Allen's rule, Bergman's rule, Wrench's rule, and Jordan's rule. You can take a snapshot of this so that you can study all these four rules in detail, and these are required for the AIMS level of questions. Some beyond NCRT questions, if it is coming, like 1 to 2 questions can come in the NEET 2021 paper also. So for those questions, these rules will be important. But the most important one is the Allen's rule. Let us now discuss question number 2, which is a question related to adaptations. Kangaroo rat in North American deserts is capable of meeting all its water requirements by or through. Let us look at the options one by one. Ability to dilute its urine. It is wrong. It does not keep its urine dilute. Second option is ability to concentrate its urine. That is correct. Internal fat oxidation. That is correct. So we have to go with a better option. So let us move on with option number 4, which states more than one option is correct. So this is the biggest mistake if you have just marked answer 2, because this is a common mistake that majority will be making, that we will not go beyond option 1 or 2. Make sure that you read all the 4 options quickly, because these type of options, like all of these, more than one option is correct, they frequently appear in the NEET paper. So keep in mind that these points are also important. Read all the 4 options and then only go for predicting the answer. Let us now see the next question. So this is a little tricky question. Below is a diagrammatic representation of the response of organisms against temperature. So the first one, let us analyze what is A, B and C in this diagram. A, as you can see, the internal level is changing according to the external level, so they are conformers. Now conformers, obviously all the plants are conformers, so A can be plants. What about B? B can be mammals. So A can be plants, B can be mammals. Also we can consider birds as well because they are homeothermous organisms. So we can go with option number 1, which is stating plants and birds. Moving on with question number 4. Smaller animals tend to lose body heat very fast as compared to larger animals. What is the reason? Higher surface to volume ratio, lower surface to volume ratio, equal volumes of surface and volumes, very low basal metabolic rate. Lower organisms, the organisms which is having smaller size, they will be having very high BMR. So this is wrong. Equal volumes of surface and volume is also wrong. Lower surface to volume ratio is wrong, whereas the first option is correct. So the answer for this question should be option number 1. Moving on with question number 5. Match column 1 with column 2 and choose the correct option. First one, aestivation. Aestivation is summer sleep. So A can be matched with option number 2. Hibernation is winter sleep. So B can be matched with option number 1. Diapause is suspended development in zooplankton. So C should be matched with option number 3. So the answer should be option number 3. Moving on with question number 6. Thick cuticle, sunken and scotoactive stomata, cam photosynthesis and conversion of leaves into spines are some of the important characteristics of. So here option 1 is desert plants, option 2 is hydrophytes, option 3 is xerophytes, and option 4 is more than one option is correct. Option 1 is obviously correct, option number 2 is wrong, but option number 3 also stands correct. So we can go for a better option, that is option number 4. Moving on with question number 7. Just as a person moving from Delhi to Shimla to escape the heat for the duration of hot summers, thousands of migratory birds from Siberia and other extremely cold northern regions moved to the Koleado National Park, which is in Bharatpur, Rajasthan. Moving on to question number 8. People who have migrated from the plains of an area adjoining Rohtang Pass about 6 months back, they will have usual RBCs, but their hemoglobin have a very high binding affinity to oxygen. It is wrong. Have more RBCs and their hemoglobin is having a lower binding affinity for oxygen. Yeah, it can be correct. Let us look at the other options as well. They are not physically fit to play games like football. That is wrong. Suffer from altitude sickness with symptoms like nausea, fatigue, etc. They have returned back, so then they will not have these two. So the option should be option number 2. Moving on with the next question, question number 9. Consider the following 4 conditions and select the correct pair of them as adaptations to environment in desert lizards. So let us analyze the conditions. First one is burying in the soil to escape high temperature, that is correct. Losing of heat rapidly from the body during high temperature, that is wrong. Bask in the sun when the temperature is low, that is correct. Insulating body due to thick fatty dermis, that is seen in the case of seals. So we can go for options A and C. So answer 3 is correct one. Moving on with the last MCQ question. The figure given below is a diagrammatic representation of the response of organisms to abiotic factors. What do A, B and C represent respectively? A is remaining constant with respect to the external level. So we can say A is regulator, B is conformer, and C is partial regulator. So option number 4 stands the correct answer. So with this we complete the MCQs of this section. Now let us discuss the important board exam questions, the short answer as well as the long answer questions, which is related to the previous lecture and this lecture. So let us start with the first question. This is an important question. Write the differences between conformers and regulators. So if we take the case of conformers, we have seen that these organisms cannot maintain a constant internal environment and are called as conformers. Their body temperature changes with the surrounding temperature or the ambient temperature. In aquatic animals, the osmotic concentration changes with that of the ambient osmotic concentration. They do not have any mechanism to maintain homeostasis, and under short duration stressful conditions they migrate or suspend. So that is shown by conformers only. Migration and suspension is shown by conformers only. Now, if we take the case of regulators, they are able to regulate or they are able to show homeostasis. Their body temperature remains constant, osmotic concentration remains constant, and they have mechanisms to maintain homeostasis. They will not undergo migration or suspension during unfavorable weather conditions. Moving on with question number 2, how do organisms such as fungi, zooplankton, and bears overcome temporary short-lived climatic stressful condition? First one, they have mentioned about fungi. So in the case of fungi, they will be producing thick spores. Thick walled spores are produced in the case of bacteria and fungi. In the case of zooplankton, they will be entering into a stage of inactive development, which is known as diapause. And in the case of bears, they will be undergoing a process of winter sleep, which is known as hibernation. So this is a 3-mark question, 1 mark for each of the points. Moving on with the next question, mention some important adaptive features found in desert animals. What are the adaptive features which are seen in desert animals? So desert animal, we can take the example of kangaroo rat. So in kangaroo rat, we know that the water requirement is very less. So there is internal fat oxidation that is releasing metabolic water, and that metabolic water is responsible for the various metabolic activities. Another way is they bask in the sun, that is saying in the case of the desert lizards, they bask in the sun and bury when the temperature is high, bask when the temperature is low. Another one is production of concentrated urine, so that less number of water is required, less amount of water is required for the excretory purposes. Next question is describe the various adaptations of the desert plants. Here we can talk about the CAM pathway, modification of leaves into spines, and phylloclade. And another important point is about the sunken stomata, and another one is related to the CAM pathway. CAM pathway is the most important point, and there we can mention about the scotopic stomata as well. How are Antarctic fishes can survive below 0 degrees Celsius? So I told about this point. They are having anti-freezing solutes by which they can manage and keep their fluid free from freezing. Why xenothermal and eurythermal organisms have differences in their geographical distribution? What is the reason for these? Because in the case of eurythermal organisms, they can survive in a large number of climatic conditions because they are able to maintain a particular constant temperature. So they can be seen in a wide range of temperature, whereas xenothermal organisms cannot regulate their temperature to a large extent, as a result of which they are restricted to a narrow range of temperature. So this can be a 2 marks question. Next question is very small sized animals are rarely found in the polar regions. So here we can talk about the case of why the conformers are not becoming regulators. That is, here their body volume is very less and the surface area is more, so heat loss will be more, and as a result of which they cannot survive in the colder climate conditions. It can be again a 2 mark question. So with this we conclude all the important questions as well as the important theory related to the topic of organisms. We have completed the topic of organisms, and in the next lecture we'll be starting with the second half of this chapter, that is population. So the first topic that we'll be discussing is population ecology. Second is about the population attributes, age pyramid, and population growth. These are very, very important points, and in the next part we will be discussing some of the mathematical aspects in biology as well. So if you can just brush through the basics of differentiation, integration, and logarithm, then it could be much more easier while understanding the growth curves. So I hope you have understood these 2 topics, that is responses and adaptations, and do comment your queries and suggestions in the comment section below, and do not forget to share it with your friends, and do give a like to this video. Thanks for watching.